More now on Attorney General Eric Holder's speech in a little over 2 hours. Ahead, some big changes on how the Justice Department prosecutes some nonviolent drug offenders. The changes would mean some offenders would no longer face mandatory minimum prison sentences at a time when prisons are facing a huge overcrowded dilemma. Joining me now is MSNBC military analyst and former drug czar for President Clinton, General Barry McAfree. General, good to see you. You know, some supporters of mandatory minimums say that they have led to lower crime rates. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think by and large we ought to support what the Attorney General is trying to do. We got way too many people behind bars, 2.1 million people, most of it overwhelmingly state and local incarceration, which is where most of the drug-related sales and prosecutions go on. Having said that, Richard, there's a good argument. You know, I'm part of the National Association of Drug Courts Board of Directors. We want discretion to judges in sentencing less than prosecutors on whether to charge you with the crime that you actually committed. So I'm a little uneasy about what they're doing. The feds normally do not prosecute low-level, nonviolent, drug-related offenders.
So if you're saying that's happening mostly on the state level, then the suggestions that will be coming from Holder very shortly in the next 2-3 hours, are you saying they're not going to be effective?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a major factor. When you find the feds prosecuting somebody in a major urban city, it's because the locals are trying to get a long-term drug dealer off the streets. There is some room for improvement, by the way. There's no question a drug mule, some poor woman flying drugs out of Colombia probably shouldn't go to jail for 20 years for carrying drugs. But as a general statement, what we want is the federal mandatory minimums change so you don't have 3 strikes and you're outlaws, and you let judges adapt the sentencing to fit the accused.
Now, another point, another part of what we expect Holder to be saying will require some change in law, which the Congress will have to approve here. What suggestions do you think are good, and will they make it through the House?
Well, I don't know. You know, I tried to, President Clinton wanted me to, and I fully supported it, change the sentencing guidelines on powdered cocaine versus crack cocaine, and we were notably ineffective in getting Congress to change the law. I might add, a lot of these mandatory minimums started because of disaffection on the part of the population with grossly varying sentences. One person with a similar crime would get 10 years behind bars, the other people 90 days. That's where these laws started. Now, I think they've worked our disadvantage. They ought to be changed. But the administration needs to go to Congress and make the case.
That case being made, where would you suggest then we would focus our energy and resources?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is to focus on putting additional resources into probation officers and probation systems and keeping people not behind bars at $45,000 a year, but keeping them under supervision. The caseload on probation officers may run 100 probationers. It's just completely ridiculous. So you got to put resources, and the second thing you got to do is you got to affect drug treatment programs. So, you know, if a guy's a heroin addict and he's 35 years old, you lock him up for a year, he'll go right back to drugs when he gets out.
As always, thank you, General Barry McAfree.